Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. We're looking at one of Carl's saws that he sent over here for repair. Trying to remember the laundry list. I mean, actually, it wasn't that bad. Potential oiler issues. I wasn't able to run it long enough to see what that was all about because the fuel tank was leaking so damn bad. Obviously, the manual oiler knob is busted off there, so we'll replace that. I mean, I'm anticipating it'll need a carburetor kit. I just don't know. But like I say, you can't... When it's leaking fuel out faster than, almost than you can pour it in, that's a slight exaggeration, but not much, it becomes a problem. So, first thing we're going to do is replace this tank gasket. And I've been using the Proline rubber replacement. I'm not impressed with cork these days. So, whether it be in the Tillotson, carburetors, the HLs on the bottom fuel turret, or around gas caps, I don't know. Modern cork, I guess they don't make it like they used to. Sound like my dad, but, I can tell you in all honesty that I've had too many occasions where a brand new cork gasket is leaking like a sieve, and it's like, well, shit, what's the point? What's the point of putting a new gasket on if it's just going to leak? And yes, you can put gasket sealer on it, but me personally, even the stuff I like, the gasket cinch, I still haven't found it sealing up cork all that terribly well, even when I drown it. So, yeah, we're going to do... God, I hate that. So hard to get to on these things. I've been trying something different, and with these things I have been using the Proline, and you can probably see it in the bottom of the screen there, reproduction tank gasket. It's rubber. I believe it's Buna N. I know it's fuel resistant, and I've had good luck with it. So that's what we're going to put in here. As soon as I can get this damn handle out of the way. Such a goofball design. I guess at least they put a slotted head screw in here. Otherwise it'd be even worse. You can't get a socket to clear that nub right there in the casting. Let's see if I can grab a bite on this one. And that one worked. That's good. Okay. Handle's out of the way. I can stop complaining and start repairing. Although, you know what, while I've got her tipped on the side, we'll go ahead and take this strap screw loose because we're going to need to replace that manual oiler rod, and we might as well do that while we're attacking this whole thing. Okay. Now I could get away with doing the tank gasket without even removing the carburetor, but because we need to get to that oil rod, we'll just get it out of the way. Wait, disconnect the fuel hose last. I think it'll let me. Come on. This isn't rubbery or spongy or nasty, so I'm going to reuse it, or at least that's my intention. Carburetor, alright, I'm going to pull that out so that nothing gets goobered up. So for you guys that aren't super familiar with these McCullochs, I'm not going to proclaim to be nearly as proficient on these as I am on the Homelight stuff, but I've been into enough of these to know some of the little fun and games that they're hiding. The two screws right here have kind of like, well, they're a locking tab on the plate here. You got to bend that back away before you can get a socket on there. And why it wasn't just a lock washer or some Loctite, I don't know. Somewhere there might be an engineer that used to work for McCulloch that remembers why. Hard to say. And that one's not bent. Okay. Go ahead and just pull the throttle rod to the side a bit to get to this one. And that wasn't extraordinarily tight. Not going to take those loose yet. There's one other thing we have to deal with. And I should have thought of this earlier. God, is there any oil in this? Ah, shit. There is. Oh, poo. I even knew it was coming and I still let it get me. So there's one screw you can't get to until you take the oil cover off here. Damn it. Of course, this is an Allen head screw that is full of trash. So what I'm going to attempt to do here, I'll have to raise the camera a little bit so you guys can see what I'm up to. I'm going to try to cheat this process, knowing that there's oil in there, and knowing that most of that made it in the garbage can. That's not bad. Knowing that I'm going to replace this gasket anyway, and that there could be a problem with the automatic oiler based on the information Carl gave me. Yeah, we're going to try doing this. So I'm going to loosen. Nice water, yuck. I'm going to try and loosen that up. I'm going to get lucky. Nope, that's going to round off. Try and leave the oil in there. And I need to get an Allen wrench that will actually hold. Those T-handles that I've got weren't the hardest material ever. Translation, I don't want to rip it apart. Screw up one of these screws. Okay, there we go. So this is going into the casting in the fuel tank. And if you don't take this off, you don't get that throttle handle off in the tank. Not my favorite design. I will complain about this every single time I have to take one apart. Looking at the design of the saw, I understand it. I understand why the decision was made. I just don't like the design. It's that simple. Now, I thought I felt silicone there, which is a common attempt to make that little gasket not leak. And I would say it's probably not common when it actually works. Oh, cute. Thanks. That's what I want. Just going to have to take this off again, but I don't want to waste that oil. We'll use it to test the oilers when we get to that point. Okay. Now, we'll remove the rest of the throttle. There's nothing saying that you have to do it in the order I'm doing it, but my theory has always been do the two outer first and then take your two inner ones loose. Otherwise, in a weird, if you lost grip on it, caught it, you could break that casting. I know it sounds stupid, but I've actually seen stranger things happen. Okay. Now, I won't say that every model has these spacer washers underneath that, but this one does. So I'm going to put them back so they don't get lost. Wouldn't want one of those dropping down into the engine. Alright, so from here, what's holding it in place is actually a mystery to me. Oh. God, that's right. That's right. These two starter housing bolts, I think, have got to come out. I think the mounting ears are actually on the fuel tank and not the engine itself for these. Oh, come on. What size are you? I thought those were metric. Okay. What the hell? This is a fun little game. Alright. Some of these late model McCullochs are almost as much fun as a mid-2000s GM, where you find metric and standard all on the same truck. And there's not a whole hell of a lot of rhyme or reason. I'm actually not convinced that that isn't a metric, rather than that 964th that I grabbed. I don't know what the hell it is. No. Unless there's a 3.5mm that I don't have, we'll stick with the 964ths and hope for the best here. God. These are fine thread, so that's fun. Fine thread and 3 miles long. Yeah, I think once this comes out, that'll come off. You might be sitting there going, God, why don't you just take the starter off? I could. And I may have to. But my motto has always been, take as few things loose as you need to. But I can't avoid it because of the kill switch wire. So I guess get it over with. One problem with Allen head fasteners on saws like this is they fill up with junk. You just can't get any kind of a bite. So I guess this thing will get its bath, whether I wanted to do it right now or not. Let's size up. When I filled this up, it's no joke. It was running out into the carburetor chamber so fast. I was able to get about 3 pulls, and thankfully it fired enough to know that, oh wow. Alright, so that fuel tank's been leaking long enough that it made that mess. Okay. Here's the kill switch wire. Damn, what a mess. So that is the routing of the manual oil pump rod. And that's not the right rod. I bought a pack of these that were advertised to be the right part number. And that is not. And somebody mixed up the 1010 style with the Pro Max, the 610s. So that's unfortunate. That means I can't put any of this back together, which is extraordinarily not helpful. Purposely waited on this so I could avoid having a bunch of parts strewn about for a week and a half waiting for parts to come in. So I'm sure glad that plan worked out well. Alright. I'm going to hose this thing off. There's no point in cracking that tank with garbage everywhere that can possibly contaminate it, so we'll be right back. Okay. Let's go ahead and crack this. Oh man. Nothing else has gone easy today. Why would that? We'll see if a little shake, rattle, and roll will do it. Does that actually fit? Not as well as I'd like it to. Damn it. I'm not a big fan of using this smaller flat bit. Not sure that's going to grip worth a beans either. And it's not. I'll tell you what, folks. Let's hope that DeWalt makes a bit that will hold up. Nice. Come on, sit still. This one We'll see. Alright, that went better than I thought it could have. Now we need to separate this. And the gobbledygook that they used around the airbox is still good, so we're going to reuse that. So I don't want to damage it any more than I have to. I'll try a point in here to pry it up, get it started. There we go. And there we go. Don't lose your spacer. Get all of the old cork out. See, that's just shrunk. Shrunken, whatever you want to say about it. It is not doing anybody any good for sealing. Could be wrong, but it almost looks like somebody tried to silicone this at some point. I don't know. McCulloch might have used some kind of a sealer to go along with their cork. I don't know. Alright. Now, this is already jacked up enough that where the paint is loose, I'm going to chisel some of that off. So we've all, well, if you've paid any attention to these, you've seen the ones where the paint is bubbling outside. And that's from a leak where it's gotten under the paint and it's going all the way through. And once the paint's chipped, you're not going to stop that. But when you're doing one of these gaskets, make sure you're sealing to a reasonably smooth surface. And where the paint's already chipped, like right there, cut it back, try and feather it so that new gasket will push down and hopefully do a better job than the one we just took out. And to give it a fighting chance, I'm going to use some brake clean to clean that edge up. Then the air hose. This tarry junk was they used, but fairly effective. Alright. Hey, look, there's an engine on top of it. I'll have to press it in. There we go. That really fits well. I mean, I am not one iota unhappy with that. I'm going to get this cap the hell out of the way, though. Because trying to get this spacer back in place would be difficult. Alright, so kind of holding that gasket in place till the last second here. Okay. Oop. It's noticeably thicker than the cork. Obviously it hasn't been compressed for 20 some years. But the amount of compression that it does end up getting as you tighten it down is part of what leads me to believe it's going to be fairly durable. And will conform to the edges of that sealing surface. I don't know, even back in the day, 20 some years ago when I had that old 77 Impala, I did more cork freaking valve cover gaskets, and yeah, I even tried new valve covers where the tin wasn't, you know, bent from over tightening and all that, and I could never get a set of corks not to leak. I'm sure somebody's done it, well, probably lots of somebody's. I'm not that somebody. Alright, so this spacer, you need to get a good enough grip on it with a pair of pliers small enough to fit through there, and roughly line it up without doing that too many times, because it gets annoying. You got to do it at least once or twice just to remind yourself of why it's so much fun. These are not the world's best pliers. Damn surface is all worn flat since they were made in that lovely place that so many of our tools are made now, where quality control seems to be an damn afterthought. Alright, I'm not in the mood to deal with you for much longer, stupid. But there's not too many ways you can go about this. Ah, damn it. I really don't like these things. I don't like them one little bit. Yep, good and fun. That's what we're going to call this, is good and fun. Nope, there's no fancy way to do that. It's right there. Okay. A pair of pliers that still had teeth on the nose would probably make that a little less dramatic than I made it. Okay. So, you can see, got a long ways to go. That spacer is going to prevent us from over-tightening it. Okay, we'll call that good. So that got the front down about the way you want it. Crank on these back two. And that should bring it the rest of the way into shape. Beautiful. That's not going to leak. But that may be the end of our fun and games, seeing as how I don't have the right... What are the odds? I couldn't find any adjust the knob, but since that twisted off so easily... Okay. I'm going to go off camera as I'm trying to drive. It's retained by a roll pin right there. And I know from experience that that is a miserable, dirty, dirty thing to get out. Okay. So I was able to get it moving with a real ground down nail setting tool and a pair of vice grips on top to kind of wiggle it loose. That worked out well. Better than I expected. So the way this is retained, you don't have to worry that that's popping off so easy, because that relief right there, you're going to go past, the roll pin's going to hit it, so there's nowhere that it can go. It can't just rattle off. So that's a plus. Okay. Probably don't have that knob right. Surely you don't have to. Oh, you know what? I may not be high enough yet. I'll just take it out. What the hell? So I'll twist the knob to where looks like I'm exactly 180 off. There we go. That's where it needs to be. Okay. I'm not going to get clever. I'm going to put it back in exactly the way it came out. So if it ever has to be done again, and I drove that from the bottom because it was driven in from the top, so it had less distance to go when I was initially removing it. That, to me, only just made sense. I'm going to go with it. Okay. That's in the path. You can see the indent right there where the oiler's going to go, but at this point, once again, I've got to clean saw up. So much sawdust. I have to assume that tank's been leaking. I mean, the starter is just caked. I need to straighten that out in a serious way. Yeah. Yep, we're going to do some cleanup. And when it's to a point to test run, because there's not much else to do in here, at least not that I'm seeing. The muffler's still in good shape. Wouldn't hurt to replace the rim on this and pack the bearing with grease, but we can do a test run and make sure she's actually running right first. Make sure that we don't have to come back in and do crank seals or something like that. The rest of this is pretty well sealed up, so like I say, I'll clean it up and get it back together up to a point to where we can test the automatic oiler, and if it's good, then we'll set it back and replace that tank gasket that's leaking and hope we can get that to seal up. Okay. Rebuilt the carb. That was in sore need of that being done. Yeah, what else? That's the only thing we hadn't chatted about that needed to be done, and I made a strategic blunder there. That may not be able to get that back underneath. So part of the ridiculous design, you have to have the choke rod down below this lip before you bolt that carburetor down. Otherwise, you can't get it in there because of this little cutesy rubber band thing that holds everything together. Yeah. Is what it is, I guess. Let's see if she'll run. It's not leaking gas, so that's an improvement. That's promising. grommet worth a diddly hoot. All that commotion to attempt to see if it was pumping oil, and it is. You can see the red that came out. What I've got in the can is clear, so it is pumping on the automatic side. There's just not enough oil in there to pick up consistently, which is fine. I can go ahead and change that gasket out. So I had to close that low speed down a solid good half a turn in order to get that idle to stabilize. It sounds pretty good where it is, but when you tune the low speed when it's warmed up like this, or at least for me, it's not uncommon to have it just be a smidge lean. So the next time you go to start it cold, you get a little bit of bog when you're hitting the throttle. So if I'm a screwdriver width or two off, I'm not going to be shocked, but this is a good step forward. Carb kit definitely helped. Having the saw cleaned out never hurts. That's now taken care of, and she's not leaking fuel out of the tank seam. I didn't have that gas cap tight brilliantly. I don't know how I did that, but you can see that it's not. I mean, when I filled it the last time, it started filling this carb chamber almost immediately. This cap apparently just is going to leak. I put a new duct bill in it. It might be leaking around that gasket. To see if I've got anything even close to that. But I also want to see if this will start now that it's warmed up. That's not bad. My pressure tester said the carburetor was holding, and the fact that it started that easy, I would say, is confirmation of that. So, with a whole lot of cussing and complaining about McCulloch, because, well, I guess that's what I do. Carl, I will say this saw is well on its way to being ready to come back to you. Like I say, it definitely needs to have that tank gasket replaced, but I'm going to save that for another day. The hard part is done. We've got the new air filter here, because we also have got to get in there and grease that sprocket bearing and drop a new rim on it. But let's say the hard part is definitely done. It appears to be running good, so we're getting a lot closer. I'll get into that Super XL next and take care of the few little things it needs, and then hopefully in a week or so these will be ready to come back to you.